Well, hello and welcome to a very special interview. I'm Siddhartha Talya, and today I have the privilege of speaking to Mr. Gopalkrishna Gandhi. He's been a former diplomat and administrator, a former governor of the state of West Bengal between 2004 and 2009. He's also been a bureaucrat and also, of course, happens to be the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And I'll be speaking to him about his book, his latest book, The Undying Light, by Gopalkrishna Gandhi, A Personal History of Independent India. Many thanks, Mr. Gandhi, for speaking to Times Now.
Thank you for asking me.
Mr. Gandhi, let me begin by something that you write towards the end of your book. Now, you've been maintaining a diary consistently for almost 2 decades, and you cite something that's a very honest admission towards the end of your book, where you cite your diary, and I'm just quoting you here for the benefit of our viewers. You say, "I do not know if I'm liberal or conservative, a socialist or a believer in free enterprise. I'm not patriotic enough, not learned enough, not earnest enough, not knowledgeable or experienced enough. I have lived on the capital of my surname." Did you consciously or subconsciously try to leverage your Gandhi surname for political power at any stage in your life? How do you look back at the admission that you made there?
I did not need to do that, but the surname has been a huge factor in my life and in that of my siblings. It has opened doors, it has closed potholes, but it has also been a weight to carry. It has been all these, but in balance, it has given me an edge over peers. It has given me a lift, which I must acknowledge in all honesty, and which I must say I do not quite deserve.
Why do you say you don't deserve it?
For I know myself, and I know myself to be a perfectly average human being who has this name as a surname derived from somebody who is way above average and who has raised my height above my natural station.
Let's go backwards and begin with something that you write towards the end of the book, because you devote one particular chapter, of course, to the epilogue, and before that, the coming of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And you write, "He was not a new captain in the old boat, SS India, but a new helmsman at the stern of a new boat, SS Bharat. The older vessel had been powered by 2 jets of steam, democratic republicanism and secularism. The new one by those of majoritarian nationalism and Hindutva," stop quote. Now, you've also chronicled what happened in 1984 under the Congress in the book. You've also talked about the Congress party's own flirtations with both Hindu as well as Muslim vote bank politics. You've talked about the pain that the Hashimpura massacre in 1987 caused you, once again taking place under a Congress dispensation. You've written about the emergency. So the question therefore is, would the alternative that you describe to the Congress have had such an appeal among the people of India if the cause of secularism or democratic republicanism, as you write, really had been furthered by that party, which is the Congress party?
The Congress is an umbrella party. It has sought to bring under its shade every section of opinion, and nobody knew this better than Gandhi himself, who took pride in the Congress being a party above caste and creed. India is bigger than the biggest umbrella that can ever be. Big as the Congress umbrella is, India is hugely bigger. And there are sections of India which cannot fit under not just the Congress umbrella, but any umbrella. And at one point in the book, fairly early on, I quote the philosopher lawyer Menaka Guruswamy to say that India is a majority of minorities. The majority of minorities. And finally, ultimately, the last minority is the individual. It's I and you as individuals. We may belong to a particular community, but we are in any community just ourselves and very different. the opposition in India, under any dispensation, under the Congress and under what was for a brief time the Janata government, and now under the BJP or NDA government, the opposition reflects that larger chunk or rim of India which does not come under the umbrella of the ruling dispensation. And so the opposition as such at any time is hugely important as long as we call ourselves a democratic republic. And both those are very important. Democracy, which is about elections, and republic, which is about belonging, which is about relating. So as long as we call ourselves that, the opposition is hugely important.
Since you mentioned that secularism is a relatively modern concept in at least Indian parlance in the way in which the word is used, it nevertheless has been, of course, now been introduced in the Constitution over the last 50 odd years. Do you believe that it's been practiced in a distorted manner, principally by the Congress party, because it's come to now be identified with the concept of so-called Muslim appeasement? When one talks about secularism, one also talks about a divorce, perhaps between religious matters and administrative matters. But that's not really happened. A lot of Hindus would tell you that more than 100,000 temples remain under state control. If there is a minority status granted to certain religious groups within predominantly Hindu states, that same courtesy is not extended to Hindus where they're a demographic minority. When one talks about the Uniform Civil Code, which you also write about in the book, Mr. Nehru did pass the Hindu Code Bill in several installments. But as far as tampering with the religious practices of Muslims was concerned, that was left in abeyance. Do you believe that this kind of preferential treatment has led to an angst which has now called for a certain correction in the way secularism should be practiced in India?
Secularism, like socialism and communism, can be seen at its best and at its worst. At its best, it has been embraced beyond the immediate pulls and pressures of electoral success or of popularity. Those who believe in it as a principle place it much above the hits or misses of elections. But you are right, the temptation to win a short-term battle by compromising on the basics of secularism is very strong, has been very strong in the past. Very few people, among whom I would list Gandhi, of course, and Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, the great Badshah Khan of the office, Maulana Azad. These are few who said Hindu-Muslim unity is a greater ideal than freedom. Those like Baba Sahib, who said equality of opportunity is more important than a transfer of power in Delhi. These are those who can be called ideational fundamentalists, not the fundamentalism of one religion, but of an idea, the idea being secularism. Yes, you are right. Secularism has been hostage to electoral gambles, but I believe that it does survive. Yes. And nowhere better than among the people, as most recently, when we had this tragedy in the Kumbh Mela, there were Muslims who reached out to the pilgrims who had suffered. They were not trying to prove the secularism. They were not thinking of secularism fundamental. They were just being human. And I think the most secure home of human tolerance and human respect for the other is amongst people, not amongst leaders.
But do you actually see that in practice, for example, in a state that you served in between 2004 and 2009 as governor, West Bengal? Of course, there was a left dispensation under Buddhadev Bhattacharjee in power back then. But you did interact quite closely with Mamata Banerjee, the current Chief Minister, because you were trying to mediate between Buddhadev Bhattacharjee and Mamata Banerjee over the entire Singur land agitations as well. And you got to know her quite well back then. What's your assessment of how she's practiced secularism in West Bengal? Because what we see currently in Murshidabad right now, in the wake of the Waqf protests, as well as the exodus of almost 300 Hindus from Murshidabad to the neighboring district of Malda, and there have been riots in which people have died. What do you have to say about the kind of secularism that she has practiced?
Mamata Banerjee is a child of modern Bengal. But modern Bengal is a child of Bengal, which has known strife between Hindus and Muslims. It is in Bengal that the direct action announced by 1946 announced by Muslim League and Jinnah started. And Shuravardi, his role is not the most complimenting role that we know. So she is a representative of a culture which is inherited by her. And when a fire is on, one should just look for how the fire should be put out, not for how the fire started. I do not have the answers on how the present rage in Murshidabad started. I think we may never know the full story. It's a sordid story. But right now, she and those who are helping her from this union government in terms of parliamentary forces have to be wished every good luck to stamp it out. Because Bengal, since we know from 1946, has the potential of spreading fire elsewhere. It all started with direct action in 1946, spread to Bihar, and then to Punjab and North. Bengal is the nursery of our hope and the seedbed of our fears. We must wish her well. Saying that, I will not dodge your question about Mamata Banerjee directly. I must say this, that in 1984, since it is well behind us, and we can now go into the origins and behaviors of people at that time, 1984, she was nowhere in power. But she played a very major role in seeing that there were no repercussions on the Sikh population in Kolkata and elsewhere. She has gone down in records as having played that very positive role. I would like to believe that Mamata Banerjee will still prevail. But I would like to see her intent. And it is still too early. She may well not measure up to what is needed. She may well stop short of it.
The allegation is that the interest in 2,000 crore rupees in an allegedly charitable company was transferred without proper norms being followed, and the direct beneficiaries of that were Rahul Gandhi and Sonia Gandhi.
They are saying that the company worth 1,000 crores of properties, these shares have gone to specific individuals named therein. It is factually incorrect.
This is the only startup where, without inventing anything, a magical 50 lakh rupees converts to 2 to 5,000 rupees.
Why has this been raised today? Because Rahul Gandhi has time and again exposed Narendra Modi's links to a corporate house.
Why was the Congress party giving loan to a private entity and a political party as a political party?
जो राहुल गांधी और इसने यंग इंडिया ने किया है, इसको बेल आउट कहते हैं.
What is the criminality in this case? The criminality alleged by the ED is cheating, fraud.
अयोध्या में क्या हुआ? एक जमीन 2 करोड़ की खरीदी गई, 7 मिनट बाद उसको 18.5 करोड़ में बेची गई. What you'll do? आपकी ईडी क्या करिए? PMLA कहाँ गया?
Beyond Better, the new Tiguan R-Line. Volkswagen.
What smart AC?
स्मार्ट एसी वो है जो बाहर के बदलते मौसम के हिसाब से
होम को रखे सुपर कूल।
घर ले आइए पैनासोनिक स्मार्ट एसी और रहिए फ्यूचर रेडी।
Panasonic.
जियो अनलिमिटेड ऑफर, अब अनलिमिटेड 5G डेटा के साथ, फ्री क्रिकेट, फ्री होम फाइबर ट्रायल। कम ऑन इंडिया, जियो डिजिटल लाइफ।
ड्यूलक्स वेदर शील्ड पावर फ्लेक्स,
इसका हर रंग लड़े धूप, धूल और बारिश से।
इट्स कलरफुल, इट्स पावरफुल।
Here's something else that you've written in the book, sir. Will India's past change from being available for study, analysis, and self-development into being a territory for reenacting religious combats and political score settlings? In other words, the territory for eternal conflict. Will history be used in India as a tool for control, for political aggrandizement, by creating new myths of victimhood and tools for vendetta? That's a question that you ask about the weaponization of history. One has argued that this government has taken matters to one particular extreme. But when you look back at the time that history was being taught in our schools and colleges for much of our independent history, principally under the Congress Party, do you think there was a very sanitized, distorted version of history that was actually being imparted to young minds to perhaps influence them to ensure that the baggage of partition is not carried forward? But nevertheless, in that process, was some very critical history from our past actually censored? And did that actually work against the cause of truth?
The writing of history is done by a pen. The editing of history is done by a blade. Yes. And the pen and the blade have never been silent. They have both been very active. Distortion, a word which you have rightly used, is another form of what can be called motivated editing. And that has always been the case. The colonial powers edited out so much of Indian history.
Correct.
I would say that in emphases being laid, in scales being shown, proportions being made, the first few years of independent India overplayed the role of certain individuals. Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, Rajagopalachari, Azad became heroes of a scale which they themselves never wanted for themselves, but they were ballooned beyond their own proportions. It is true that one person who said hero worship is dangerous was Babasaheb Ambedkar. But if you see Babasaheb Ambedkar's own trajectory, I think he would be somewhat embarrassed by the way his name is being used by people who have not studied him, but who have just found him very useful as a tool. And so distortion has many forms. It includes cutting out, eliminating from the center. It also includes overblowing persons, proportion and balance, for which there is a beautiful Tamil word which is alavu, measure. Alavu is what history requires. Alavu, not exaggeration, not minimization, but alavu.
Here's something that you've actually written about 2002. I'd like to ask you if you'd like to, in a way, rephrase what you had originally written. I'm just quoting you back, sir. You've said on 27 February, after 59 Hindu pilgrims were killed in a fire aboard a train in Godhra, Gujarat, one of the worst incidents of communal violence in India started. The violence in the city of Ahmedabad left over 500 Muslims dead. Now, the way in which you've begun the sentence, you've said that they were killed in a fire aboard a train in Godhra, when you have at least two court judgments, which is a trial court as well as the Gujarat High Court, having convicted 31 people for their participation in a conspiracy to set the train alight and kill the Hindus that were on board in that particular bogie. But when you say fire aboard a train, it leaves it slightly ambiguous. Can you tell us about why you wrote what you did, and if you want to revisit the way you've written it?
The reader can edit the sentence as she or he pleases, to either see ambiguity or to see prudence and caution. For those who have said that there was a conspiracy, one can find those who have also said that there was none. There are those who have said there was none. I do not want to judge that.
But even if the courts have actually stamped their imprint on the fact that yes, there was a conspiracy and they've actually tried people for it, convicted 31 people and sentenced them to life imprisonment, surely the court's word needs to be taken into account as well.
Should I rewrite what the courts have said? I don't think that is necessary. I have not questioned what the courts have said. I have said what is a fact, that there was a fire. There was a fire. I have not said anything more than that. What the courts have said, the courts have said. We know what they have said. I do not think the way I put it is the best way it could have been put. Perhaps it could have been put better. It could have been put in a way which repeats what the courts have said. But it does not in any way deny or diminish what the courts have said.
When one, of course, weighs your grandfather's legacy, do you believe that there's also been a tendency to perhaps overlook some of his failings as well? Or do you believe in the India that we live in today, there is a readiness to approach his assessment in a more objective manner?
Overlook? I think in recent times, Gandhi has not been spared criticism. He has not been spared honest criticism, and he has not been spared dishonest criticism. Dishonest criticism is motivated criticism, is not objective criticism. And here I cannot but cite a statement made by him to Indulal Yagnik, who was a critic of his. And Gandhi says, this was in the 1920s, that a time may come. In fact, I think he says, a time will come when I will not have a place of my own, that I will be turned out from wherever I am, and I'll have to beg for my food. I'll be so violently criticized. Far-sighted. And I think that is what we are seeing today. His failings, of which he was the first proclaimer, his mistakes, of which he was the first to own, have not only come under fair, objective and much needed scanning, but his whole life has been subjected to vicious, tendentious, motivated distortions. And the one person who would have, had he lived now, risen in furious defense of the Mahatma was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. He would not have tolerated distortions of his leader, just as he was himself a critic of his leader's political actions many a time, including the famous fast which he undertook, which was his last fast.
Correct. And this was, of course, over the transfer of money to Pakistan. Just to end, you share a very important anecdote where you met Arun Jaitley, and Arun Jaitley basically assured you, and this is over a statement that you had made, that we hope there comes a day where temples are not erected in memory of the assassin of Mr. Gandhi, Nathuram Godse. Mr. Arun Jaitley gave you an assurance that Gopal, we will not see a day when these statues will be erected. We will make sure as a government that this does not happen. How assuring was that to you?
I did not ask for what can be called an assurance. I was just stating my concern. And what Arunji told me was not an assurance, but a spontaneous statement of his own, which reflected his own thinking.
Correct.
He was speaking for himself.
Yes.
He was not trying to allay my fears, which were not fears expressed to him. And I have always regarded Arun as a person who could be trusted with his conscience. Now, Arun is no more.
Yes.
We cannot hold others to account. To account for what Arun has said.
Yeah.
Impulse in Arun Jaitley was real, and I believe that good sense will prevail.
Thank you. You've been very candid indeed. And this is a book that is sweeping in scope. It's called The Undying Light, by Mr. Gopalkrishna Gandhi, A Personal History of Independent India, spanning 80 years almost, sir, of your life, right from the time that you were born till the present day, of course, beginning with the Modi tenure as well, and a fairly comprehensive epilogue about the direction that you think India has adopted and where it ought to go in your view. Many thanks, sir, for sharing your views with us.
Thank you very much, Siddhartha.
Thank you.